Everybody. Amanda has joined us. We seem to have had two groups going concurrently, and she has taken them through the constellations that we were planning to do, and now she has joined us an hour later, and we're wanting to carry on with the subject matter that we spoke about in the newsletter. So we've had a good chat for an hour with all our current events. So if everybody is happy to switch over to Amanda, our Joburg, Gauteng area Connecting Consciousness coordinator, she's going to be leading us for the next hour. So thank you for the lively conversation. Blessing from Ghana just had to leave us. It was awesome to hear about news from West Africa, and Wanjiku, news from East Africa, and then us from the south of Africa. It's absolutely amazing that we are able to all connect over our huge continent and share our news that is going on, that I can always put all the bits and pieces into my Connecting Consciousness coordinator Skype chat with Simon, and I send him all these bits of information, because when I hear him doing his podcasts, I hear my words coming through his mouth sometimes, because he obviously can't trust mainstream media. So the people on the ground here are the news to him. He's sitting there never having left the UK, despite having been born in Zimbabwe. He did sail to the UK. I did wonder how he got there. It wasn't a Stargate. I so wanted it to be a Stargate, but he sailed with his family when he was a baby. And so he really does trust the information that he gets from us on the ground in Africa. So I'm so glad that you are all able to chat so openly and join in with the conversation. So thank you, everybody there. And I'm going to hand you all over to Amanda. Hi, Amanda. All yours, my dear.
Hello, everybody. I'm so sorry. We had this 6 people, and I'm like, I'm sure that this group was supposed to be bigger than this, you know. And then I kept checking my link, because I'd sent out a link because Viv asked me to host. So I thought, okay, I'm hosting. I set up the meeting. I posted it. It went out on the newsletter. And apparently we both had a separate link. So we had 2 parallel lives going for a little while, and 2 little ships, like a mini offshoot, 6 people, and then decided to join you guys. I'm sorry about that. It's just a little bit of teething problems on my side, coming in as the regional coordinator and just learning, you know, all these things. So it's so nice to see your faces instead of just seeing your sort of @Telegram code, you know, with all your wonderful words, but lovely to see some of your faces. So hello, everybody.
Hi, Amanda.
Hi. Hello.
A face, full face.
Oh, a face. Yay.
Our timeline for a while, so that's great.
So maybe since we've kind of gone now for an hour with the other group introducing each other, but just because I haven't met any of you, maybe we can just say hi and where you're from. And then I'll go into the constellations and remote viewing intro.
Well, I don't mind introducing myself. I'm sorry I don't have a camera. I'm on my desktop computer. I'm Ursula. I'm from Port Elizabeth and South Africa. Sorry, Kera, or whatever it's called now. We've got a new name in Port Elizabeth. I can't pronounce it.
Okay.
And I came across Simon quite some time back. I think I got hold of him through Charlie Ward's show, and I just think he's absolutely super. He makes so much sense. So, and that's the first time I've joined on a chat.
Okay, wonderful. Cool. Who else? Anyone else feel like introducing themselves?
Hey, from Madrid. Furniture already.
Hello, you two, like little peas in a pod.
Hello, Mickey.
Hello, beauties.
One more.
Is Medbed 1 and Medbed 2?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Roy, I've been chatting to you a bit, but I haven't seen your face.
Well,
Hello.
this is my first appearance on your. Well, you haven't had any meetings, Zoom meetings. You started in January, I believe. Is that right, Viv?
Yeah, this is my beginning of my second month, so just starting, right? Not even January.
Well, it's all an experiment, isn't it? It's spiritual beings having a human adventure here on Earth. So I consider myself to be an Earthian citizen for now.
You don't look very Earthian. You look very other.
Well, I put the Earth in my background here. Life is a very, very interesting experience here. And how can I introduce more? I've introduced myself, how can I say, graphically with some of my wordsmithing. And but that's just one little hobby sideline. I'm actually an architectural professional, senior technologist, and I had a run-in with the architectural council, and I'm busy with some complaints and challenges with that institution. I'm not obsessive about it, and there's no ego involvement, but I feel it's important to bring miscreant people in positions of authority to bring them to point when they're behaving illegally and unlawfully in terms of the law that even puts them there in the first place. That's another hobby, is taking on the bullies. And I won a few good fights. I've been involved in wildlife societies, and I've taken on Freemasons who had captured municipalities down here in the Southern Cape, because I'm quite fearless of bullies, and I know how they really big cowards, little cowards.
Okay, and we'll keep that in mind. Hey, we'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. If anybody needs to, I've been personally in contact with Reino de Beer of Liberty Fighters Network, and have collaborated a little bit with him in last year. He's doing sterling work. It's absolutely walking in a quagmire when you're working with the judicial system. As most of you are probably aware, the judicial courts, the law courts throughout the entire planet are captured by very dark, I would say I can't even qualify them as dark and evil, because they're actually just.
You've actually gone dark. Sorry.
Wow.
They're obviously listening. They're like, let's try and silence them.
Cut him off.
Roy, you've totally disappeared. So guys, I'm not gonna, because this intro thing is gonna take the rest of our time. I just wanted to just hear your names really and look at your faces, because I haven't seen some of you in person. But maybe instead of doing long intros, we can just, should I just jump into my thing?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I'll just give a little bit of background, my background, and how I got into family constellations, and then I'll talk a little bit about the theory behind it and how it links to remote viewing. For those of you that came to the last workshop that I ran, I would have already said this, but there might be something else that comes through. So I cut a long story short, let me just see. I had a spiritual life from the beginning with my mom, very diverse, sort of satsangi, meditation, being a vegetarian, then Sai Baba. Then I went to Ramtha school for 22 years. So I've done like many different things, and then got into, through the Ramtha school, they just said, follow Trump, he's going to change the world. And so got into Q and following Q from about 2016, just at the election time, and then followed sort of 8 hours a day, all the anybody. And and so have really been a part of this journey, this red pilling journey for years now. And it's been just the most mind-blowing reveal to watch. And the family constellations thing I got into because I wanted to study drama therapy in the States, which I did. I went overseas, studied it for 4 years, came back. And there wasn't anything quite like that here. But what there was family constellations. Have any of you done a family constellation or know anything about it? Yeah, you guys have been. Yeah, a few people. Okay.
I know about it, but
do you? Okay.
So,
I'll tell you like a little bit of the traditional aspects of constellations, and then I'll tell you about my applied version of constellations, and then we'll link it into the remote viewing content. So there was a guy in the 50s whose name was Bert Hellinger, came from Germany to South Africa as a missionary, and he brought he thought he was going to come and sort of convert everyone to Christianity, and he came as a pastor to KwaZulu-Natal, actually, and came and studied with the Zulus and preached and all of that for a little while. And then it became more of a trade of traditional wisdom learning. And he actually ended up staying and learning traditional Zulu traditional wisdom, sort of African traditional wisdom, for about 17, 18 years. And then took it back to Europe and hybridized it with some of the European psychologies that were there happening, like phenomenology and existentialism and that kind of thing. So it has its roots here in South Africa with the Sangomas, family constellations. And some of the ideas behind it are that we can access the ancestors, we can work with them to do healing of our lines, of our lineage, through tapping into this thing called the morphogenetic field, or the knowing field. So Rupert Sheldrake was the one that coined the term the morphogenetic field. And he is a kind of a well-known biologist. The idea behind the morphogenetic field is that there are these coded fields around which information organizes itself. So we are not forms, but we are fields. And those fields can be tapped into and so they can be downloaded and recoded and reorganized. So when you do work, for example, in a family constellation, you can actually tap a number of different fields. So if you're working, for example, with a family field, you can access people that are no longer alive. You can bring their information through. You can do work with unfinished business for people that may have passed over, for example, and really have something to say still, even though they're not, here. And you can shift the whole flow of the field coming to your generation through family constellations. You can do this thing called like the cleaning of the lines, or the cleaning of the field, the flow. I just think, is there any, I'm going to keep going with that, but does anyone want to say anything?
Sounds very interesting. Thank you. My daughter's a psychologist, and I've studied some things. She works with contextual therapy, which also not quite the same way, but it also goes into the ancestral and resolving issues from ancestral issues. So I find this absolutely fascinating. Thank you.
Okay. So, well, the idea is that we we inherit this family field that is almost like a memory field of everybody's experiences. And unless you work consciously with what you have been handed down, you can unconsciously hand that on to the next generation. So you've got to do work to consciously sort of intervene on patterns and things like that.
And
one of the ways,
like epigenetics.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's the same.
Yeah. So epigenetics comes along with the whole quantum physics revolution. The quantum physics came in really about 100 years ago as this new idea. And the idea was to go from the atomic physics, which is where everything is kind of solid and outside of yourself, to subatomic. So the scientists could study what was inside or underneath the atom and look at the structure of it. And they started to find this quantum field. And this quantum field had these 4 properties. The observer effect was one of the properties, subatomic properties, so smaller than the atom. Let me just turn off my Telegram so it doesn't make a noise while I'm talking to you. So yeah, they studied smaller than the atom, they looked into its properties, and there were these 4 that they found. So the observer effect was one. And what the observer effect was they were doing experiments where they were shooting these particles through these double slits. I'm sure some of you have heard of the double slit experiment. And where they would observe, the slit in which they would put an observer is where the particle would collapse. So it would go from a waveform into a particle formation. Okay. So they started to see that this field was responding to the observer. So as someone looked for something in a certain place, so they were influencing the direction of the field, the quantum collapse. So the observer effect was one major aspect of the quantum field. The other one was the dual nature of light. So light is both a wave and a particle. So things are not solid, they're not fixed. They can be reorganized. So as we say, for example, are healing ourselves or our body or something like that, we have to realize that that diseased aspect of ourself can actually be reorganized as we observe it back into health, and we undo that collapsed particle with that information in it into something new. Okay, so dual nature of light, and then there's entanglement. So entanglement's the 3rd property of quantum physics and the subatomic realm. And entanglement is where they realized that these 2 particles that would come together from seemingly different aspects of reality, once they had touched each other, they imprinted information into each other. And once they had imprinted into each other, when they separated, wherever they went, they would take the information of the other with them. So they became entangled in each other's destinies, essentially. Okay, so that's the idea of entanglement. So it's like if we are all little particles interfacing with each other, and we're exchanging information, so we come together like this in an interface, which is kind of what we're doing right now. You print on me and I print on you, and you take that in. It becomes like a recode or a download. And as we part, we take with us that imprint of what we've just done with each other. We take it with us wherever we are. So that's the entanglement principle. And then I must just try and remember what the other one is. So it's dual nature of light, observer effect, entanglement, and non-locality is an important one. So the idea of non-locality is that we don't exist only in this locale. we are not just here, we are everywhere. So our consciousness is in all places, in all times, simultaneously. And we can access that. We can access all times, all places. Okay, that's non-locality. So you get to see that a lot in quantum, in family constellations, and also obviously in remote viewing. So that's one of the big things in remote viewing that you'll see, is that somebody can close their eyes as a viewer, and they can get a target. They don't even consciously know what the target is. They access that field through the subconscious mind, and they download that information from something that is non-local to them. They don't even know where it is. It could be in the sea. It could be a base underground. You know, it could be on another planet. It could be in another dimension. So we are all those dimensions, and we can access those things. So those four properties of quantum physics ties into epigenetics, because in the atomic physics, kind of just like Einstein's realm, although he did get into the subatomic, but just right at the end of his life, you know, when he said like God doesn't play dice, and he was so wrong. But what they found is that, so people have this idea in quantum physics that, I mean, before quantum physics, that everything was fixed, including your genetics, okay? They'd say, oh, because I'm, you know, this person's child and this person had this physical thing wrong with them, therefore I'm going to have it and I can't get out of it. It's destiny, it's fixed. So that's very 3D. That's not who we are anymore. The whole idea behind epigenetics is that the DNA is not fixed, and that the DNA is also not the blueprint. Our minds overlay the DNA, and the signal that comes from our observation or our perception of reality is what switches on the genes. So we code our own field like a song or like a harmony that plays from us, and that's how epigenetics works. So we actually can switch on and off, activate different genes if we work on it. We work on switching our fields. So that's what we do in constellations. Okay, so what we do is we take someone's field, we invite someone's field. Okay, what is it that you're working on? Let's say it's a health issue. We choose someone in the group, if we're working in a group, to represent that person maybe and that person's health. And the person that stands as a representative of that person's health will actually get the downloads or the information of what's going on for that person. You can actually download that field, the codes and everything gets reported back into the system. And then because now we are looking at it and seeing it, we're being present with it, we're observing it, now we can make some choices with it. We can shift our perception of it. And for those of you that have read Bruce Lipton's work, perception is the key to the expression of the genes, right? We know that. Okay, we shift reality through our perception. So that's what we're busy doing in this shift. We are shifting our perceptions from 3D to 5D, and we're going through this almighty change of paradigm. So as we get all this new information, so we see the world in a very, very different way. And because we're seeing the world in a different way, we're going through this entire regenesis of ourselves. So yeah, I just wanted to say that and put that out. I know I'm kind of going like rather technical, but that was the So that's a little bit of the science behind the quantum field and epigenetics and 5D and also the constellations field. So are there any questions? Reflections, thoughts? I won't cover everything, but I mean, it's just a little bit of an intro, you know?
It makes a lot of sense.
I'd like to throw something in.
Okay.
Thanks so much. A very, very beautiful intro to that. And I love the way that you're drawing the family constellation into the remote viewing. I'd like to just throw into the mix my own personal experience. I started doing family constellations quite some years ago, and in this time since then, I've also done a number of shamanic journeys. Shamanic medicine is one of the tools in my kit. And I came to realize only recently how connected it is with remote viewing. So what I had been doing with my shamanic journeys was exactly that. It was a remote view into the morphogenetic field and being able to bring that information in and finding the things that we need, the keys that we as individuals need to make the decisions about what timeline or what outcome we are prepared to engage in for the future. And I really love that you're bringing it together in a group here. It's very powerful work. And I think as we practice it, and maybe even as a group, we start doing it together, either in Zooms or, face to face, I think we can really and truly make magic happen, because this is what it's about. It's changing future potentials. You know, people sometimes get into a fear-based thing about, there's all this talk and there's going to be, here in Europe, the people are very concerned about the increase in military activity related to the Ukraine, and they're starting to talk about dirty nukes and things like this. And this is something that when we come together as a group like this, we can go into the future and bring it back in a different form, so that we actually just let go of that potential that is out there in the field. So, yeah, thank you.
Is that Ursula that's speaking?
No.
Who's speaking?
Hello, Amanda.
Leonie. Okay, sorry. I just don't have a view of who's speaking, so I wasn't sure. Leonie. Okay, cool. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. Is that Roy?
Do I need to click on anything if I would like to speak?
No, you can just speak.
Just talk. Okay. Can I have the mic for a few secs?
Yeah.
I apologize for the interruption earlier. A light bulb actually popped in the other room and through the trip switch on the DB.
Wow.
So obviously, the good Lord didn't want me to carry on too long and get you to start your little workshop session. Anyway, Amanda had an interference, and was it crossed wires or something? 2 different Zoom meetings. Yeah. And then I was interrupted by some entity that chose to terminate me.
Bump you off.
By popping a light bulb. That's, I would call that psychokinetic interference. Anyway, I would just mention, I fully resonate and can relate to what you've just shared. And I'm happy to be in this group now, because I've kind of left for quite many years in some dormancy in my own experience. But I was very involved in doing workshops when I was younger, in the late 70s, early 80s. I attended a workshop on silver mind control, which is alpha brainwave entrainment. We also did theta and delta. It was a 2-evening and 2-day weekend workshop. And the transformation experience that I encountered there was just absolutely mind-blowing. Not everybody had a unique individual experience with this, and not everybody was able to visualize. And I would just like to share that it's possible that not everyone here or in a larger group setting is able to easily visualize on the screen of the mind, so to speak, to see images in the mind. Some people can do that very, very easily. I live there most of the time and not so much in the physical world in my consciousness. But I think the important thing to share here for me is that everyone has the ability to do this. It's not something that you have to become qualified to do. It's
right.
a natural, innate, God-given capacity. And the only reason that we haven't been doing this for so long is that we've been obstructed from accessing these metaphysical, super spiritual ingredients to our soul's journey. So yeah, I'm just very happy that you are presenting this in this format. I've experienced it in another format. So I would love to be available to also contribute from my experiential perception of what that multidimensional open source field experience is. So yeah, everybody here can do this. And I really look forward to it. It's so easy and it's so effortless because it is so natural. We've just been dumbed down and indoctrinated with artificial intelligence, which is not intelligence at all. It's artificial stupidity and ignorance. And it's so nice to see this rebirth, this metamorphosis amongst humanity now for some years now. I did a harmonic convergence meditation in 4 ways in Joburg back in 1986. And things moved very slowly. But I think now we're living right on the precipice of a critical mass. And I'm anticipating a huge, widespread tsunami of synchronous re-engagement with the reality of who we are. Thank you.
Thanks, Roy. Thank you. So I just want to jump in there and say a few more things about some of the work that I'm doing at the moment, and just make a few links to the remote viewing again. So this constellations field and this accessing of this knowing that we can all do, this ability to access information, we can go, we're going towards time travel and this whole understanding of creating our way into the future, instead of expecting everything just to be sort of handed to us already done. So, because that is what 5D and up and out is about. It's not just like, oh, okay, everything's already on the outside. It's like, how do we learn to use our minds to open doors and gates and focus on what we want to appear there in front of us? How are we going to become telepathic? How are we going to teleport, bilocate? How are we going to regenerate our bodies without thinking that it's just the med bed that's going to be doing it? It's because that is not really the way to mastery, which is really where we're going. We're going towards mastering ourselves. And, we don't really want to just sit inside a med bed and think it's the med bed that's healing us. Because one of the things that we did, and the way that I'm using the constellations at the moment, is there's so much coming in from the future that hasn't quite arrived yet. It's a field that we can already tap into, but it's just upstream from our current experience. It hasn't quite landed right in our lounges or, in our physical reality, but that does not mean that we cannot access it. So, for example, it's the same way as if there's an ancestor who is no longer alive and you wish to make contact with them, and you use somebody to make that contact and have that communication, you can do the same thing in a timeline with a person, a time, or a thing. So, for example, if we want to start experiencing anything, healing ourselves, moving portals, jumping timelines, etc., we can do it by starting very simply to just work with presence. And as we presence something, so we will access that information and it will start to download right where we are. So, for example, I'll use an example of that. Like, we did a medbed constellation a month ago, and Guy and Claire were there. Don't think anyone else on this group. Oh no, Ingrid was there as well. Yeah, anyone else? No. Oh, Matthew was there. Who else? Isabel. Cool. Yeah, there were quite a few. So, instead of saying, oh, the med beds are inaccessible, why don't we say, let's start to be present with them now, and constellate them is just a way of saying decode them, move into their field. So I want to keep doing this work, and maybe we're not going to do it tonight because it's quite a big piece of work, but we can actually bring that field into our homes and start accessing that healing now. I mean, that's just one example of a kind of applied field. You can actually open anything, any field, by becoming present with it. Okay, it's like in remote viewing, when you get given a target. That target is where you're going in your mind, and you become present with that target. The information, the time and space continuum between you and that thing collapse, and you are it. You are it like this. The information gets downloaded to you, and you come away and you're imprinted with it. Okay, you're entangled now. So there is so much that is available to us that we can entangle ourselves with, so that we're frequency specific. We have the signature imprint of it. I mean, we're already in the field, so we already know. The more that you know about it, the more that it will be coming your way. But you can work really quite consciously with it. There's a lovely example in this book of Lynn Buchanan's, and he's one of the remote viewers that I have really enjoyed learning about and reading. His book is called The Seventh Sense, and he was like one of the sort of high up trainers in the military and the CIA a while back. And he writes about his experience. It's a brilliant book. And I've got a group, by the way, for those of you that want to join in the Remote Viewing and Constellations Telegram group. And there's reading materials and stuff like that to follow, and small little exercises to start with, and workshops and that kind of thing. Okay, so if you want to come in, if you've got questions, that's a good place to ask. But Lynn speaks about this one target where he was sitting, in his lounge, and the target ended up being somewhere under the ocean. So he remote viewed it, closed his eyes, traveled there through the subconscious mind, through the unified field, saw the target and came back. And when he opened his eyes, he was wet. And he had actually entangled with the water of the field where the target was. So you have to be very mindful in this work, that you learn that you understand that you are going to be syncing your energy with what you are becoming present with. So because I've had some run-ins without realizing it, with some not such nice energies, I'm now much more, what could you say, careful about what I remote view and what I let other people remote view or constellate even. It's kind of, a constellation for me is like an embodied remote view. You get the field and it comes in, you use your whole body to become present with the viewing. You can actually almost see it, like create an image, almost like a holodeck in the room. It's quite amazing. So yeah, anyone want to say anything about that?
Amanda, I have a quick question.
Yes.
When you talk about the target, do I start off by saying I want to view this target? Do I fix the target or what?
So if you were wanting to view, let's say, what's on the evergreen, whatever they're called, or they're called ever something or other, inside the containers, if you were just remote viewing that for yourself, because normally in a professional remote viewing situation, you don't know what your target is, because you can fill out so much information with your conscious mind that you start guessing. So if you're a professional remote viewer, you don't know the target that you're being sent to. You get trained how to get information from the subconscious out onto a piece of paper before the conscious mind interferes. And it's a very long process of training, because our conscious mind is not the clever one. The conscious mind needs to learn to receive and get out of the way. So the remote viewing process is learning ways to let what Lynn Buchanan calls the two neighbors that don't know each other's language to start to speak to each other, the subconscious mind and the conscious mind. So it's a process of teaching the subconscious mind and the conscious mind to speak each other's language.
So what do professional remote viewers, I mean, you talk about professional remote viewers. I mean, how do you become one, and what is the purpose? I mean, what do you do? Who do you work for? Who sends you?
You can do anything you want with your mind. That you can travel in time, you can view things that are not in front of you, you can find missing children, you can investigate crimes. You can just use your mind in a multidimensional way. So, for example, one of the ways that we used constellations to do a remote viewing was that a client of mine's father had gone missing in Rwanda, and she had had a whole search party out and couldn't find him. And we eventually did a constellation using people to remote view where he was and what was going on with him. And we got an incredible amount of information about what was going on with him, that you might not have been able to do in any other way. So those are just examples. And Lynn, they use people to spy. The government uses remote viewers to spy on people.
Sorry to continue. May I ask a quick question, a quick follow-up? When in the example you've just given about your client in Rwanda, you say you used people. Which people? And where are those people? Where were they positioned?
So they come to my house. We go into the garden. And then you get a briefing, like what's the story, what's happening. And because I mix family constellations and remote viewing, it's not what is called a classical or controlled remote viewing. This is like an applied method. So if you were there, if this whole group was there, I would say, okay, let's say you were my client. I'd say choose someone here in the group to represent your father. So you would say, okay, you know, whoever, David's going to represent my father. Okay, who's missing? We can't find, we don't know where he is. So then David gets kind of enrolled into that person's field. And then we ask him, okay, what is he picking up? What is he feeling? Is he getting pictures? Is there information? Once that starts to come in, then you build on that. So then there's other things that you can put into place. And eventually, you know, after doing this for 20 years, I can tell you that it's pretty accurate. It's pretty amazing what you can get.
So would David be a trained viewer?
No, just a you and me, just an any person.
Oh, okay.
We can absolutely, so this is why I like family constellations, because we actually have an innate ability to know. We just need a little bit of help to get out the way and sort of just become a little bit of a channel for information. And we can all do it very easily and access a huge amount of information for anybody in any way. So it would be nice to make a team, you know. We can make a team that gets used to working together and getting out the way. And we could do some amazing work together. I mean, what a fantastic, you know, it could be fun.
It sounds incredible. It sounds really fascinating.
Yeah, so we'll set up, you know, some times where we start, where we get the basics in place and that you start to have some experiences for yourself, because it's really only through direct experience that you become like a convert. You know, you're like, I can do it, it's real, you know.
I'd love to help, and it would be super to be able to help other people by using this kind of thing. Because I think we're going to need there's going to be a lot of help needed in the future for a lot of people.
Definitely. Okay.
I've got something to say.
Okay, David.
It's quite interesting. Hi.
Hi.
I don't know if anybody would remember the early 80s, but there was something that carried on for quite a long time called the I am training. Some people may interesting. Also did the silver mind control training, and during that training there was a little part that they wanted to introduce us to the fact that we had these abilities. Just anybody, nobody had any idea particularly about whether we could do this or that, and we had a little thing called other people's viewpoint. That's what they called it, and it sounds exactly the same as. What would happen is we get three random people together. We didn't know each other. I mean, it's the first time we'd seen each other on the training anyway. And they put together, one person was there to write things down, and one person there was to close their eyes and think. Now, what happened is you'd start giving them, it's difficult to remember exactly how it was working, but you started giving them impressions. And there was somebody who first had to perhaps give a name, I'm not sure, but I had, for example, a chap who's that I knew who'd gone overseas, and he developed cancer, throat cancer, and this person didn't know anything about him, and she was sitting there, and she said, "Oh, I'm picking up something about." There's something in the blood of this person. Where it eventually came to the point where there was an understanding about this particular one having had the throat cancer at that particular time. So I see that this is a strong connection of that. strong connection.
Yeah, very similar. That's really what you can do. And I mean, you can really, once you start learning how to apply this ability to decode information in a field, you can do it for anything. You can do it for healing, you can do it for accessing things in the future. You can, you can really, we can know anything as long as you have the acceptance level for it. And sometimes you have to build those bridges. If you haven't done it yet, it's like going to gym. I always say to people, don't expect to get fit in an area by going to gym once. If you've got this is mind fitness. It takes a long time to build bridges in areas if you haven't done it before. If you have, it won't be as difficult.
Another quick question, please, if I may.
Yeah. Sure.
Amanda, how do you then protect people's privacy? I mean, how do I ensure that I'm not poking into people's lives with this capacity that I get? If you see what I mean.
Yeah. So if I'm working with someone, for example, let's just say I'm a psychologist, okay? So a client would come to me and I'd take the story and I'd decide where we are going. And then you can unpack a client's field, and then you kind of, if you're tapping into something, you have to ask permission. Can I come in here? Is this okay? And often if you can't access the information, it's just that you're being blocked. So it's just not available for you in the field. So you need to open the field with a prayer. You need to set strong intentions. You need to know what you're doing ethically. And you have to be very careful of those things, very careful around boundaries, because you can violate a boundary and you can, it will come back to you. So you have to really, really learn the nuances of how to work in the field, and you have to do it ethically. Like, one of the things that Lynn Buchanan says in his book is this whole idea of, especially for the remote viewers that are in the CIA and they get used for spying, for example, and they look into super dark situations. That's why, I'm not a big one for remote viewing much that's happening at the moment, because it's very dark, you guys. It's like you might just remote view into a tank of demons, you know what I mean? So I'm not going to, as a sort of a teacher of this stuff, I'm not going to take you there. You would only be taken to places that are going to entangle you into something that's healing. If you decide on your own that you want to go and look into, these darker fields, I would just say to you, be very careful. You can come back with a whole tank of demons on your head, okay, without realizing it. And then you have to do a detoxification process, because you have entangled, you have gone like that with that field, and you come back and you're printed with it now, and they know who you are, you know who they are, and it's a problem. So there's a lot of skill. And when people say to me, I want to remote view X, Y, and Z, while we're in the middle of this incredible spiritual war, then I would say you have to know what you're doing. You have to really, really know what you're doing before you go put your mind down a rabbit hole that's very dark. Does that answer your question? Any other question?
It does. Yeah.
Amanda?
Yeah.
Just a sort of an everyday example of what's not very significant things like top secret missions or whatever, but like it's going to town and I've got to do some shopping, and it's about having an expectation of effortlessly finding a parking spot, as opposed to every time another person might go shopping and will really struggle every time to find a parking spot or a suitable parking spot. Now, I've moved into a zone of my own perception where, and my wife and I share this open field, call it synchronicity. When you, as you develop, I don't know, you can maybe do a show of hands, how many people have actually done a useful amount of meditation, process. Because I think learning to still the conscious mind, to find a quiet place, and the first stage is to stop all the mental chatter, because we all walk around all the time with mental chatter going on in a slightly below the surface. And the meditation, whatever technique you use, can quieten that conscious mind. And once one has arrived at that level of stillness, or let's say relaxed awareness, it opens up that capacity, what you described, much more effectively. So yeah, it's about being relaxed with the idea that everything is just kind of synchronized smoothly in my journey, in my experience. And then on the question of the lady from Kenya, is it? Wanjiku? Asked a question about what about privacy? So we did the technique of the intention is that it's for the highest good of all concerned. It's an affirmation. And then I also witnessed a very advanced kinesiologist, a gentleman from Cape Town, Dr. Frans Kromhout. And he did a muscle testing technique using his little finger kinesiology test. And before, and I presented myself as a volunteer for him to do a diagnosis of various things. And he asked permission, at a subconscious level, whether it would be okay, for example, to first of all analyze that person, and secondly to disclose whatever information might come into his awareness. So there's a huge responsibility that comes, with the program, so to speak. But that obviously that's going to be a part of your, workshop process. I would imagine.
Yeah. So it's a long-term learning journey, because there's many aspects to take into consideration. And so for the people that are just starting with the group, I am just building it up, and will slowly build it into modules where people have kind of achieved a certain amount. And then we go on to the next step. Because to keep going backwards for every new person that comes in is silly, because it's almost like a year-long process to get your basics in place. So we just slowly this is, just a gathering field at the moment, just gathering consciousness of people that would be interested in this training. And I'll come to you now, Angie, I see you. Where the training is at the moment is just some reading material and some meditation exercises. And then, if I have the time to take people into sort of remote viewing exercises and stuff like that, I'll do that. But I can't do it all the time because Viv and I are both full-time volunteers, you know, and so we also have to earn a living somehow. So it's just a matter of gathering people and finding the time, and then if there is enough interest, maybe to charge a little bit or whatever for the modules so that I can put my full focus in. Are there, yeah, Angie.
I was just wondering, so if, for example, obviously I'd be interested in this for my daughter and her healing process. She's been a month off her chronic medicine, and I'm currently seeing a acupuncturist who's a chiropractor, and it's going well, but obviously I'm quite nervous because we've never gone this long, and she's doing okay, but I'm still so worried about it. I would want to look into healing her. Can you explain how one would go about that, and
how old is
possible?
She?
And she's 14, and she was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis at the age of 11, which then became Crohn's. So now she's been like 4 years on medicines, and they want to put her onto what they call biologics, but that's just a fancy name to trick you into vaccinating your child some more with untested and, you know, drugs with terrible side effects. She's had terrible side effects, and, you know, emotionally it's exhausting and worrying for us. So I'm just looking at every possible avenue, and I'm very open to anything, and she's a free-spirited, you know, very open person. So I think that, you know, this could work with her if you feel it would. I'd love to hear more about it.
Sure. So I'll give you a little bit of the background of how I might work, and every person is a unique individual, and so I'd have to work with everybody in a different way. But the first thing with disease is you want to look for the soul's learning. Maybe there could be an imprint from another life, if you believe in other lives, that there's been something that's been carried over. So, you know, there's a lot of things, a lot of avenues to look at, like what is this disease teaching her? What is its function? If you constellate the actual disease, you let it speak, like in body talk, you see what is the information that it has to give you? What is it trying to say? You can make links to, is this a pattern that's in the family? Is there, you know, is there a hidden loyalty sometimes in the disease? Did it happen linked to something else that happened in the family? So there's many, many different ways to unpack it. But you want to get the information out from the subconscious in the same way as, say, for example, someone like Dolores Cannon, who did the deep hypnotherapy. She would use the ability to go deep into the subconscious to get the answers for what the purpose of this disease is in this life, and how is this person going to let it go, and when are they going to let it go, and are they going to let it go? Or what is it doing there? You know, so you can get a lot of information out that can kind of guide you and illuminate you. It's not necessarily that someone's will get better. You know, it's just you have to honor the soul. You have to honor the soul and their journey. But you can get a lot of information.
Thanks. That sounds fascinating. I'd love to explore it, find out how. Thanks.
Sure. So any other questions or thoughts? Is anything that I haven't covered? I know I was going to talk about other things, and I'm not sure if I have, but does anyone have something that they would like me to cover?
How often does the group meet? How often does the group meet, the group that you have set up?
The group is online and they're all over the place. So it's it hasn't met apart from one in Johannesburg family constellation meeting where I've just started to introduce the ideas. So it's still growing, it's still forming.
You want it to be a physical group, or it can be a virtual group?
No, we can experiment with how it goes with being online, for sure. We can definitely do that, because, I mean, wouldn't it be amazing to be able to do this work? I'm just getting a strange update here. Some updates could not be installed because Zoom is interrupted. Okay, anyway, let's hope I don't get kicked off. Would you would obviously like to be a part of it?
I would, yeah. Yes, I would, yeah.
Okay.
And I'm very
so I think I'll have to think about how to structure it. There's obviously interest from other people as well on different levels. You know, I'm just wondering, maybe Viv and I will just have to brainstorm a little bit about how to take it forward. It's just a matter of how to access you know, everybody, so that everybody can be on board with this that wants to.
I think maybe a starting point, Amanda, then, if it's going to be like a virtual connection, because, you know, we're all living at different locations geographically, physically, that one could perhaps start with, you know, creating a time space, you know, a certain day and a certain time that a collective team of your theme or project would sit quietly, do a focusing, you know, exercise, and then you would obviously write maybe on, well, I won't say obviously, but I would suggest actually that you have some sort of written format, you know, a description of a format for a gathering or a meeting for that synchronized collective event. And for me, on a bigger picture, I'm a Piscean. You know, my astrology, I'm influenced by the zodiac of Pisces, but I'm actually all signs. I've been around quite a few times. and the thing is, we're in the Aquarian age now. We're not going to be there. We're in it. I think the transition has already occurred, and so the more we work with a collective energy and the group consciousness, there's going to be much more available now than there was, say, 10 years ago or 30 years ago. It's here now, and God's Spirit will absolutely support and provide resources and support intentions behind holistic collective like workshops and teams to unify our world. How's that?
So, Roy, just as you were talking, I was just thinking a little bit about a structure. What I'm feeling is not to structure too much this year, but to rather pilot this year and see how things fall together. So, for example, we could probably put together something once a month like this. Aside from being on a Telegram group and doing your own readings that I've advised, and there will be YouTube videos to watch and exercises that come into the Telegram group that will be your homework, your ongoing study. So I think maybe just something that I have to find out what's manageable for me in this first year, you know. Yeah. So I'm just thinking maybe the group can pilot with one meeting like this a month and just see how we go. Just go ahead like that and see how it feels, because I don't want to try and fix something. Not yet. So we could just put together a Zoom that's specifically related to having an actual family constellation remote viewing experience, and just do some online work together. And see who shows up, and let's just work with that.
How much preparation, how many hours, for example, how many hours would I need to commit to arrive at a point where I can be functional within that, what you describe as a family constellation?
No, nothing. No preparation. You
mean instantly?
You just arrive, yeah.
Okay.
No preparation. No, we'll just set up a time and we'll get together like this once a month. And let's just see how it goes from there. Let's just take it one step at a time.
And I think the right group will gel together, Amanda. The right people will stay and they will work together. I think you've got a good idea there.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. We'll let it unfold. So, Isabel, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I had a question.
Okay.
So I know a little bit already from doing this with you. What I want to know is, okay, I don't know exactly how to express it. Please just help if you get what I'm saying. Is it possible to change a possible timeline? So if you do constellation work or remote work for future stuff? I think I know the answer, but I just want, maybe there's someone else.
Okay, you'd have to give me an example because some timelines are more fixed than others. There's a timeline war on at the moment. Okay, so we know that through watching all these videos. There's a timeline war. The dark want their timeline, and we want our timeline. Yeah. So yeah, but then there's each person creates a personal timeline within all of that as well. So just tell me what you mean.
Yeah, I think more on a personal level.
Okay, can you give an example?
No, I just got, maybe I should ask that question
individually. Okay, so you want to shift your personal timeline?
Yeah, let's say I realize that there's a very annoying reoccurrence in my life, something that keeps on happening to me, or choices that I make, and I don't necessarily know how to change that. Is it possible to do that with constellation work?
I'd have to find out what it is first to tell you how likely it is that you can change it. But I'll give the example that I give to my groups in terms of change. So how we were saying the whole 5D thing is around perception creates this. So the example that I gave at the last workshop is that we live inside a window of perception, which is based on everything that we've learned to be true. And that creates almost like a stained glass window effect, where our consciousness shines through this window that sits in our brains and sits in our minds. It's our own belief systems. And there it creates a reflection on the floor. And that reflection is our life. And it's what we're looking at half the time or all the time. And we like living in the reflection, right? And we think, oh, this is, a good piece of the reflection, and this is a bad piece of the reflection. I don't like that. And if you get too caught in pointing on the outside at the reflection and you don't realize where it's coming from, then you kind of get trapped in a kind of victim mentality. So what you need to do is have a way to get your perceptions outside of you, have a look at what's going on, reorganize that perception and re-internalize it so that you've got a new window and therefore a new reflection. But we know that some beliefs are harder to let go than others. So like, for example, we have very hardwired beliefs of what is right and wrong. Okay. what we were allowed to do and not allowed to do. Are we allowed to see the future? Are we allowed to reverse our age? Are we allowed to travel in time? Are we allowed to? Because we've been so indoctrinated as slaves. Basically, it's like a prisoner that's just been let out. You know, you don't know how to be free at all. So there's a lot of learning involved in the bigger picture of how to really free yourself up and actually take charge. Some people think, okay, I'm not in charge. I'm not at all in charge. And then you have to rework that.
Thank you.
When you are,
yeah.
Well, when you're answering Isabel's question, Amanda, you said that there's some timelines that are fixed and some that are less.
Some that are
fixed.
more fixed. Yeah, more fixed.
Give us an example, please, if you don't mind.
So like, I mean, this war that we're in at the moment between dark and light, you could say, like, I'd say, you know, we're on the trajectory of the Aquarian age and the planet's ascension. That is a fixed timeline. There'll be different ways that you can kind of experience that, and some will do it faster and some won't. And yes, there is a battle, but you know, if you hear the overall picture, then it's set. It's a timeline that is set. If you want to try and reverse the ascension timeline on this planet, good luck. Good luck to you.
The timeline that's more flexible. An example, please.
That would be more tied to your personal choices. Okay, so this is a collective thing that the entire universe is behind. So we're making a shift that is multidimensional, that billions of people have incarnated to help with. So you can imagine all the observers on the planet are observing this, and not only on the planet, but dimensionally and interdimensionally observing this planet into its ascension. I mean, if you think you're going to shift that, that's what the Luciferians think they're going to do. I don't think they're going to do it. It's going to be a bit of a battle, but we'll get there. We've got a little waking up to do still, and we've got to learn to be strong, get our act together, you know, realize who we are truly.
Amanda,
that we can observe timelines and we can make things happen, that we aren't just, you know, we're not just slaves, you know.
Amanda, something occurs now, came into my mind to share. I think many of us are concerned about, you're talking about different timelines and different outcomes, or the ability or the capacity to change an outcome. And what we're all witnessing for some time now is that there seem to be decisions and choices being made which appear not to be in everyone's best interests, or large groups are affected negatively or destructively by certain decisions by the people we think are the ones who are on, let's say, the good side. I understand that is a duality environment. But it occurred to me the other day, and I would love to share this because it's a rough question. And sometimes the answer's a bit tough as well. And it's like, you know, they're using super quantum computers in the war rooms and using algorithms to map out possible scenarios based on any particular decision at any given time. And you can imagine what a labyrinth map that would become, as each choice you make opens up a number of different options or alternatives of outcomes. And they have machinery that can do this, and they are using it. But it came to me that it's like I'm traveling down a road and there's a fork in the road and I can go left or right. If I take the left fork, 10,000 people will die. If I take the right fork, 2 billion people will die. Now, that might sound like an easy choice. It's always a tough choice. But I think that some of the things we've been witnessing on a macro scale, on the timeline that we find ourselves collectively on, is that some tough choices are having to be made. And it's like Hobson's choice. You end up, there's no choice where the outcome is totally clean in terms of an optimal outcome. So I just thought I should share that because I think there's a lot of fear and anxiety and anger, maybe even rage, about the fact that there's so much abuse that's been going on for so long, even still. And collectively, we're all part of being asleep to what's been going on in the occult realm or the hidden side of things. And yeah, there's tough choices to make. I think this group can make good choices. You know, I think it's okay. I'm trusting the process. And I know that we're all going to have a good outcome. But there will be some damage. There will be some collateral damage. So we forgive that and bless that.
Can I just say something? I thought about something
Troy.
this morning.
I just want to interrupt you guys. We're going to start to wrap up. So Ursula, maybe you can just put in your last little piece, and then I just want to sort of start to close the group, and we can make another time, you know, to be together. I'll just tell you if there's anything coming up, and let's
All I wanted to say just very quickly is that we are so concerned about people dying and there being collateral damage. But if we believe that we are eternal beings of light and we souls that keep reincarnating, then maybe we chose to leave at this stage in this life for a particular lesson to be learned. So why is everybody so afraid of dying? And this constant dying story is always coming up and everybody's so scared because we don't truly believe that we're eternal.
Cool. Well, thank you for that. And these are big things that we're grappling with.
I'll leave you with those thoughts.
I said to the group that did the Medbed constellation, you know, are we ready for eternal life? Like, for sure, you know, if you could get into one and know that you'll never die, this is finally your last, you know, death is now over. You know, are you really ready for it? Are you ready? No more dying. Anyway, guys, there's endless conversations and rabbit holes to go down, but we're gonna close for tonight. But it was beautiful to be with you all. I'm so excited to be in this team, and thanks, Viv. Thank you. I'm sorry we ended up in the wrong, like in a little side UFO, little offshoot. Anyway, we'll get that one right. And just thanks very much. Is anything left to say to close?
Next meeting? Any ideas for a date?
We'll have to let you know. Yeah.
Do you guys want to have a separate remote viewing discussing constellation type meeting aside from our general monthly CC meeting? Is that what you want to know, Roy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then
we'll run an actual group. So the next meeting that we'll do won't be a general community meeting. We'll actually run a constellation online, a group constellation, linking it to remote viewing experience. I'll let you know. Okay, we'll make that date.
That'll be great. Yes.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Connecting Consciousness members across Africa. Simon has been in his self-proclaimed and sort of us proclaimed 10 days of darkness. He was back at work. As he said, he wasn't sitting around on a tropical island drinking tea. Neither were we. He's had lots of interesting things to get together, including collating a solid plan behind all the healing centers that he's been saying that he's going to be opening all over the world, and has been talking to us international coordinators about it. As he said, he's wanting to open centers all over the world. So we're feeling that there's some serious plan coming together there. And he said that that's sort of one of the reasons why he's had to step back from doing the podcasts and his public appearances for a while. I think things are really coming into the fore. I'm sure a lot of you are watching Tarot by Janine. She seems to be most of our MSM go-to at the moment. And there was an interesting one posted in our Telegram group that I listened to this afternoon with her and Michelle Fielding, and all the bits and pieces that we are putting together is that the quantum financial system is really on the go and running concurrent to the current, whatever you want to call that, Federal Reserve defunct system that is failing as the QFS is starting to take over and the quantum voting system is starting to take over. There's not going to be a mainstream headline announcement for this whole thing. It seems to be, it's going to be very subtle. I think in all of our lifetimes, we've had cell phones come into being the norm, and internet coming into the norm, and emails and internet banking, and the digital era just kind of silently crept upon us. And I think that the quantum financial system is going to be the same thing. And what they said this afternoon about the child trafficking and all the dumbs and that kind of thing, it is just too horrific for your average sheeple to take in. It will drop the consciousness of our planet too massively. We cannot expect that information to be released out into the media as quickly as quantum financial system and universal basic income and that kind of thing is more likely that we're going to be seeing that kind of thing come in. I know as a business owner myself, our PAYE rates in South Africa have actually halved, because we just had our financial year finish in South Africa at the end of June. So in beginning of March, I always ask my accountant for the figures. And I said to her, "Are you joking? The figures are half of the usual salary. What's going on? Is that so that I can buy more wine in case Cyril locks us inside?" So we just had a giggle between us. And I put that into our country coordinator Skype to Simon and Becky and said, I think a little Nasara is slowly happening in South Africa. We're paying half the income tax. Where does that happen if we are supposed to have had an economy that is being completely and utterly devastated? Surely they're going to be doubling that income tax and pushing it out. So it's a very interesting little thing that's happened. And as you know, Janine said this afternoon, 3 of her credit cards have been zeroed and she didn't pay them off. So there's strange little Nasaras happening everywhere. Congo apparently has gone full digital currency as well. We'll never find that information. That's in-house that we hear from our Connecting Consciousness people on the ground. And I think this is the small little things that we need to watch out for. A lot of devaluing currencies around the world. Many currencies have been devalued one at a time, lopping off the zeros off the lira in Italy and Zim dollars and what have you. But there are a number of currencies being zeroed down to one base at the moment that Rod Steele was talking about with Nicholas Viaman yesterday. And these are the small things that us on the ground can notice, that we are changing something in the world, changing for the good. And that's why I always want to look at things from a positive point of view. In this meeting of ours on a positive point of view, may we connect consciousness in person. I had a lovely meeting with a couple of our members yesterday, as I do every Tuesday. I even pick them up and drive them around so they can save on Uber fare, just to connect consciousness. And I hold my arms open to all of them and I say, Simon says, come and hug me now. And everybody finds that most amusing, so that we can connect physically, connect our hearts, connect our souls, for all our brothers and sisters everywhere in the world, especially in Europe, who are not even allowed out of their front door. As Wanjiku said, in Kenya, they're also having these weird kind of lockdowns, shops shut, restaurants shut. We've even after over a year now in South Africa, seem to have it a little bit better than other places in the world. And we've always managed to get together as a CC community. So Simon really appreciates that and congratulates us South Africans on really just being rebels. That's, I always tell him we're tough as fuck, and that is the language that I use. Because we really are, you know, if we can't flick a light switch and expect electricity to come out the wall, or open a tap and expect water to flow out of it. We have it hard here. We really got a battle day today, and our community of almost 700 people for Connecting Consciousness has been absolutely awesome. It's my honor and pleasure to be able to be of service to everybody and get together where and when we can and just help the rest of the world that is it's not as tough as nuts as we are in Africa, just try and get through this thing. So I really want to say thank you to everybody and to Amanda for giving us an insight into especially the morphogenetic field for the last hour as to really how connected we are. We really just need to keep on meditating on this thing and bringing in this timeline that we know is there. And it is hard, and it's going to take every breath we take, but you cannot breathe in the past and you cannot breathe in the future. You can only breathe right now. That is the only time that we have, is absolutely right now. So let's stay here and now and keep it positive, and so much love to everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you for making it possible.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Thanks.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye, people.
Thank you.